to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. I love it. It's my favorite. One of my
Yeah.
favorites. It is one of my favorites because I can walk everywhere and just touch it and then just smell my
Oh,
hands. And
that's the best.
it is truly the best. Okay, so here we go. Thank you for being here. We're going to be talking about how to live an aligned life. And I just want to speak that it's something that's important in this world is because I feel like many people wonder, like, what is an aligned life? Does it have to be perfection? Is it something that, you have to have that perfect morning routine or the perfect career, perfect relationship, perfect life? And to me, an aligned life has nothing to do with perfection. It's more about creating an alignment, which is much quieter than that. And it's when we have that time where we bring the alignment into our lives. So, what does it mean to live an aligned life? Is like it's the feeling of being at home with yourself. It's when
Basics.
your outer life reflects your inner truth. And it's when your decisions come from your values rather than your fears. And it's when you stop performing for approval and begin listening to the wisdom that's already within you. So if we take those little things, I think society has us wanting to be where we have to, get this house, or we have to make our house look like this, or we have to have this job, we have to have our kids in this school. And then we try so hard and we strive so hard to get to those places, but then we forget who we really are. And being able to, I think I've been working a lot with Rosemary for the past few weeks and over many years, but this past few weeks, and it reminded me that it is the herb of remembrance. It's been traditionally used in history for associating with memory, for clarity, for devotion and sacred rituals. It just reminds us that the wisdom is not something that just always comes to us. It's something that we acquire. So with rosemary, it always brings you back to where you want to be and what you want to be thinking about. Um, so that's what I was saying, like when we walk past it and we can just touch it and we feel it and we bring ourselves back to that moment of time, which I'll get back into that in a minute. But I'm really obsessed with rosemary, so I'll come back to where we need to be for a moment. But the so if we want to step back a little bit and think about the moments of misalignment. So in our everyday life, and it doesn't have to be every day, but we tend to say a lot of yeses when we really mean to say no. And we stay in these situations much longer after they no longer nourish us. So, if you're in a job that doesn't keep you happy, or you're in a relationship, or you're doing these things just to stay in the grind and you don't feel that nourishment, then that's a sign that you're definitely in misalignment. And we follow these paths that look successful from the outside, but they leave us feeling depleted on the inside. So the challenge is that misalignment rarely arrives all at once. It often just appears as little whispers. So when you're feeling exhausted, or you're resenting, like you have to get up in the morning to go to this job, or you're restless because you know you need to be somewhere else other than where you're at this moment, or you're disconnected from that feeling of just really living in the moment and that you're feeling that you're missing something. Those are true signs of misalignment. And they're just little whispers that continue and they kind of build upon each other. And you're just like, why am I just not feeling with it at the moment? What is keeping me from doing this? And it can just be one small little change. You just bring it in, say, I don't know, let's come up with something that keep it simple instead of some big problems we have. But say, um, like you're not taking the time to go outside and walk, okay? And you put everything else before that. And every day you're just like, I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get out there. And this is a perfect example. Like I ended a yoga membership because I didn't particularly agree with the yoga studio for a little while. And so I wanted to go on my own path and do my own thing. And but now I want to get back into it. And I can teach I am a teacher and I've done yoga myself, but it's always something to be in a classroom and be around other people who guide you and support you in that. But I've been making excuses for the past 3 weeks of why I'm not going to class. Like, oh, guy doesn't feel well, or oh, we have to go somewhere, or oh, I want to finish with this client thing. And I've been so aggravated by that. And then I realized a few days ago, I'm like, it's because I'm not aligned with where my true passion is. And that is always being able to show up on my mat daily. So I have recognized that. I've recognized where the exhaustion, the restlessness, the resentment, and the disconnection all come together. And it's that simple thing of just bringing my mat out. Yes, I can bring it out at home, and I do, but I don't feel as fulfilled as if I push myself to go to a class and enjoy that class. So it's those little things like that where you find that alignment that you want to stick with. And it could be anything. And I'll open up the forum to that and the platform for you guys to talk about that because I think it's important. Um, so just knowing that it doesn't have to be these big things in life that make us really become misaligned. It can just be the daily things of not working out or getting out to do that walk. So bringing it back to the rosemary, it has a very, very rich history across cultures. And it's where ancient scholars, they wore rosemary garlands to support the memory and concentration. And brides carried rosemary as a symbol of devotion. And it was planted near homes for protection and used in rituals to mark important life transitions. And I mean, it's an antibacterial. It's like the herb that does everything. And I love it. But what's so beautiful about it too is it goes beyond just the practical uses. Like I believe there's a deeper metaphor because every time like you brush your hands across it, okay, and you put it up to your face, or you can just brush it really faintly. You don't even have to really touch it hard. And you just take that inhale. And I'm telling you, that fragrance, it just takes you to a whole nother place. And I feel like that scent is released not when it's left untouched, but when it's gently disturbed. So many of us discover our deepest truth not during the seasons of life, but during the seasons that shake us awake. So, you know, that metaphor there of just touching it, you don't walk by a rosemary plant and smell it. You have to definitely touch it and disturb it a little bit. So when we get rocked in our daily lives, it's the same thing. We're getting disturbed, we're getting woken up, we're getting realized like if a friend passes or you lose someone, you wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm going to live life to the fullest. I'm not going to turn around and let these little things bother me of our everyday existence. So we're going to give it our best. So it's those little shakings, like a little earthquake within us that turns us around, that keeps us going, that reminds us that, hey, we're here to live. How can I do it in an aligned way? And so these experiences brush against us and they release that little bit of something that's hidden within. And they remind us of what matters and they remind us of who we are. So oftentimes with the misalignment, we forget like what brings us joy. And along with rosemary is that essence that is often revealed through experience. So these experiences is, I feel like us as women, we spend much of our lives carrying these expectations and the expectations of family, the expectations of culture, the expectations of having a career, or the expectations of who we believe we should be. And slowly, as we continue to let these expectations pile up on us, we almost always, without noticing, we forget the things that we are. We forget what brings us joy, going to yoga class. We forget what makes us feel alive. We forget that our bodies are trying to tell us, and we've loved before we became responsible for others. Like, what were those deep passions we had before we turned all of our attention on to everyone else or everything else, or the job, or the grandchildren, or the children, or the dreams we quietly set beside, and we're like, we'll get back to them, or I'll get to them. And what if we can't? Like, what if tomorrow's or today's our last day? I mean, think of it that way. We want to live that aligned life that begins with remembering who we were. Because on our deathbeds, and I know I keep coming back to this because, as Jen knows, and we lost a very dear person in our community this week. And this woman she was a beacon of the most incredible strength. And she lived a life that was very aligned. and she left way too early. And I always question in this world when such good people go and suffer so badly, why? And that's a whole nother film society we can get into, but this was very poignant for me to share about the aligned life because it is so important that we live that every day. We remember our values, we remember our voice. She never forgot it through her whole entire process of her healing journey. And the beautiful thing that continues to set a precedence with my heart with her is she never said that she was sick. She always said, I'm just battling a journey within the cells of my body. And to be able to turn that around in such a beautiful way, because I feel it is hard. My mother, all the people around me who have passed, and to see the suffering they go through, and they get in this mindset of misalignment of how tragic it is. But Erin never did that. She focused on the good, and she focused on the healing versus the disease. So taking that and honoring her and her journey, we have to remember those parts of ourself that are our values. And that was one of her deepest values. And I think that's why I was so attracted to her as a friend, as a person, as a human being in the community, because her everlasting value of sticking to her alignment and her values and her truth and her balance, even though it didn't carry her on to healing all the way, but she is healed because now she's free. So that's another way to look at it. But the point is, she was strong and she was amazing. So alignment is less about adding more. It's often about removing what's no longer true. So when I think of rosemary, not simply as an herb, but she's a reminder. And so I kind of do that with a lot of different herbs. I look at them as a reminder that beneath every role we play and every responsibility we carry and every expectation that's placed upon us, there's that little girl, that teenager, that, midlife woman, that older woman who has always known who she is. And she does not need fixing. She doesn't need to reinvent herself. And she does not need to become more worthy. She just simply needs to be remembered. So alignment's not a destination. It's a sacred practice of remembering. And a little story for me, because I feel like, I told you a little one about the yoga, but a bigger one was when Gaia was probably, well, I guess she was first grade, because Linda, Regina, you both know, when we moved out of Yountville, it was when Gaia was in first grade, and we moved back to Sausalito. And when we were there, I took a job, a corporate job with a fashion industry, in the fashion industry. And it was fun. It was a lot of marketing. It was a lot of content creation. It was everything I thought I wanted to be a part of. But it stole my soul because it didn't allow me to be the mother, the wife, the friend, the daughter that I needed to be, because that's who I am. I'm a nourisher. I like to be with my family. I like to take care of them. And even though it was important that I had this job, I was getting great pay, it was taking me away from being able to pick her up from school, being able to make dinners, and then rushing through. And then every weekend, there was always a deadline that we had to do, because you had to be like 15 months ahead of whatever was being debuted, which I still don't understand that whole thing. But it was fun to learn. And I'm glad I had that experience. But then I realized, what am I getting from that? Like, yes, I'm getting a great paycheck, but I'm also losing out on the very important years in my daughter's life, the being who I really was, because I wasn't taking care of myself then, because there was too many other things going around. So I sat back and I said, hey, I'm not aligned with the person I need to be. Thank you for this opportunity, but I'm moving on, and I'm going to work just as hard, but doing it in something that allows me to have the life that I need and honor. So it's not, everybody can't do that. I think you can actually do that. I believe everybody has the power to make the change for what they need. But just personally for me, it was important to be with my family and to raise my daughter without someone else picking her up or making her snacks or me getting aggravated at dinner when I needed to be working on an email. Those things didn't matter in the big picture. What mattered is that I was there present and that I was aligned with what I believed in. And so stepping away from that job was a really big deal for me, and I'm glad I did it. And I really have no regrets on that, because it did force me to grow to who I am today and to grow my business into what it is. But I've maintained that beautiful relationship with my daughter. So I kept the alignment in how I wanted it. So before we get to this closing, I do want to do something here. I want everybody to just, we're going to just do a little practice. And if you'll just, this is a little reflection. You don't have to, you can close your eyes or not. It might be helpful if you wish. So we're just going to take that, we're going to close our eyes. And then just imagine that you have some rosemary. I should have told you to bring some, but just imagine you have some rosemary in your hands and just kind of rub them together just to start to feel that essence of your hands coming together. You get that energy flowing there. And then you're going to ask yourself, after you take that deep inhale, we're slowly going to exhale. And you're going to ask yourself, what part of myself am I being invited to remember right now? And perhaps it's courage. Perhaps it's creativity. Perhaps it's rest. Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's a dream you've tucked away. Whatever it may be, it can be anything. You don't have to go with my prompts. It can be whatever your heart's feeling at this moment. And I want you to sit with that answer. And I want you to trust the first thing that comes to mind or that arises within. Because oftentimes our soul often speaks quietly, but it always speaks. So whatever you're feeling, I want you to feel that. And remember that beneath every role you play every day or through this lifetime or through the phases of life, that every responsibility that you've carried, that you will carry, and every expectation you've placed upon yourself, that there's always that woman, that little girl, that teenager, that person inside that knows who she is. And remember, she doesn't need fixing. She doesn't need any reinvention. She just simply needs to remember that she's worthy, and she needs to make that worthiness be aligned to who she wants and what she wants. And it's little changes. It's little offerings. It's just like when we touch that rosemary and that scent comes out because we give it a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a brush. Just remembering who you are. You can slowly open the eyes. I just want to offer this question before I turn off the recording. That if rosemary is the herb of remembering, what is one thing about yourself that you would like to remember more fully in this season of your life? And I'm going to stop recording, and anybody who wants to talk can share.